Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Resilient Health Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Darren Ingalls. And my guest today, you're really going to enjoy. She's a friend and colleague, and her name is Jodi Cohen. And Jodi is an award-winning journalist. I didn't know this about you, Jodi, that you were actually a journalist prior to being the founder of your company, Vibrant Blue Oils. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that. But she's a best-selling author. She's written two books, Healing with Essential Oils and Essential Oils to Boost the Brain and Heal the Body. And as I mentioned, she is the founder of Vibrant Blue Oils, which is really one of the best essential oil companies out there that I'm aware of. And today we're going to talk a little bit about essential oils. So Jodi, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me. It's funny that you mentioned journalism. Yeah, I was journalism and poli-sci in college. And right out of college, I worked for Ted Kennedy on the Health and Human Resources Committee. And my job was literally, this was 1991, before the internet, to comb through research reports to get talking points for the senators and the witnesses at the hearings. And so I got incredibly good and incredibly efficient at figuring out how to read research really quickly and get the highlights and learn super complicated, like back in the day when we'd have to go to the dictionary and look things up because you couldn't just Google the word. So anyway,
we might have to explain what a dictionary is to younger listeners. They may not
a
know.
book that explains the meaning of words back when you couldn't just figure it out from entering it online. And then I was a journalist for a while, actually in DC, covering environmental stuff and politics, and I won a couple awards for that. And then I went and got an MBA because at a certain point I decided I needed to pay back my student loans and adult, and I needed to make more money. So I got an MBA and I was doing a lot of marketing, and then my life took a turn. I had my first child was ridiculously easy, and I just assumed I was this great mom. Had another one 22 months later, which was a different experience. He really had a lot of food sensitivities that we weren't aware of until someone noticed his behavior change after he ate something and said, gosh, my brother was on Ritalin his whole life, and it turns out he was just allergic to weird foods. You should take him to a nutritionist. And I thought, well, that's easier than everything else I've been trying. So took him to a nutritionist, found out he was super sensitive to all artificial color and flavors and corn, soy, and dairy, changed his diet. The next day we had a different child. And I was so blown away because, for anyone that's listening that's struggled with something and really struggled and kind of looked under every, kicked every tire, looked in every book, everything you can think of, and then found the answer was something you hadn't thought of, and it was food. I went back and got a degree in nutrition, was trying to help other families with, tricky kids because it's shameful. Everyone kind of, if your kid isn't kind of, fitting the mold, they look at you like you're a bad parent or you're deficient or there's something wrong with you. And so I had a lot of compassion because I walked that walk, I lived that life. And one of the ways I was trying to help the parents were kind of identifying the root issue and figuring out what remedies would help. And so kids, some kids are wiggly. They don't really want to sit still while you do that. So I studied muscle testing at Bastyr, figured out how to quickly assess what was going on with kids. And then the other shoe dropped. My husband at the time was bipolar. For most of our relationship, he was really manic. And when he kind of turned into depression, I realized he might die on my watch. And so I moved him into a residential treatment facility. And once I knew he was safe, it was finally safe for me to, stop being on high alert all the time. And the minute I sat down, I couldn't get back up. My adrenals just had no fuel left. And so that is when I found oils. A friend said, you are so chronically stressed, so high cortisol, which means you're super inflamed. So nothing you're ingesting is really necessarily going to get assimilated properly. Why don't you try oils? They can be inhaled, and go directly into the brain and the bloodstream through the nose, or you can topically apply them and they can go through the skin. And that is when I started playing with oils and making things up to kind of support my adrenals, my energy, my focus. And that is kind of how the company was born. But looping back to the journalism part, I think that being really comfortable doing research and writing about it has been such a blessing, because I would often discover like, wow, this is so interesting that this works so well. I wonder why. And then I'd go figure it out.
Oh, that's a great story. And I always think it's interesting how we all have like our own personal circumstances, either with our own bodies or our loved ones, that through that pathway, we take our life in a different direction. In your case, founding, your essential oil company, for me, again, overcoming Lyme disease, we have our path that teaches us so much, not only what we can do for ourselves, but we can do for other people. So I think it's just so great that you were able to turn that into something that's now benefiting, hundreds of thousands of people a year. And, for people who might be new to essential oils, I think a lot of people out there have some experience. They've at least heard of it. A lot of people, I'm sure, have used them. But can you just talk a little bit about, what are these essential oils?
Yeah, oils are the concentrated essences of plants. So basically, you pick lavender from the field, you put it in a big vat of boiling water. The steam rises, the oil goes down one tube, and the boiling water goes down the other. And that is how you distill essential oils in essence. And so, what people may or may not know is that most of our modern medicine is derived from plants, right?
Right.
White willow bark became aspirin, valerian root became Valium. We most of the pharmaceutical drugs, I think it's like over 50% of pharmaceutical drugs are derived from plants and based upon the chemical constituents of plants. So by using concentrated essences of essential oils, you're basically capturing that same medicinal property. But in order to copyright something or patent something, it needs to not be found in nature. So that minor altercation sometimes is what causes adverse reactions or side effects or other challenges. But if you're just working with the natural product, it assimilates more naturally into with humans. Plants and humans are biofamiliar.
Yeah, I always think it's funny how, drug companies will take something that's been in nature forever, and they, to patent it, they have to tweak it by one little molecule
Yeah.
to be able to make it a new, unique substance. And I think one of the funniest stories I ever heard about, a drug company stealing from nature was with red yeast rice, which isn't really a plant per se, it's a food. But they found that this red yeast rice, which is a food that's consumed in China, contains 11 naturally occurring statin compounds. So back in the 80s, Merck made a drug called Mevacor, which was one of those compounds as a cholesterol lowering drug. And then they turned around and they sued the company that was making a supplement of red yeast rice for patent infringement. And they got into this very long legal battle, and they won their initial case actually, and then it get overturned in the appeals court. But it's just so funny. It's like, how can you steal something that nature's been doing forever, and call it a drug? But to your point, these essential oils are very concentrated and incredibly powerful. So talk a little bit about what are some of the things that essential oils are good for?
Yeah, I mean, most people think of them as being like relaxing, like
Right.
lavender or chamomile. They have kind of sedative or anti-anxiety properties. They can calm you down. They also are kind of known for being energizing, like vasodilating, like peppermint or rosemary, which means part of what energy is getting blood flow into the brain or the limbs so that we have the energy to move, right? And so if the vasculature, if the veins are kind of constricted, less blood flows. Think of a freeway, right? If there's construction going on, there should be 4 lanes, but only one is open. Not traffic moves very slowly. And then the minute that you pass that construction area and all 4 lanes open up, there's more space. So you move faster. So that's another area. And they can be used. What I try to do is work with practitioners and kind of identify areas that blind spots. If someone is low in vitamin D, that's an easy one. You supplement with vitamin D, right? If somebody is struggling to sleep for a variety of reasons, or their lymphatic flow is not draining or getting congested, or they're kind of stuck in a stress response, that's where oils, I think, are an incredible complement to what they're already doing.
Yeah, and clinically, I mean, I've used essential oils, like you mentioned. I think stress, anxiety, sleep. These tend to be very common uses, and I think a lot of marketing I see out there is kind of for those purposes. But again, they do so much more. I mean, some of these essential oils are very potent antimicrobials. Some
Correct.
of them are, like I said, they're good for circulation, good for cardiovascular illness. Some of them can actually help control blood sugar. So,
Yeah.
there are really very broad applications. If you consider all the plants out there that contain essential oils, and literally there's a gazillion of them, each of these different plant extracts can do various things for the body. And like you mentioned, they can be applied topically, they can be inhaled. Sometimes we do use them internally, although I know you have to be a little bit careful with the internal use because some of these essential oils are so potent they can really cause some gastrointestinal problems if you don't know how to dose it correctly. But just to understand that there's a very broad application of these essential oils. So, I'm curious, with your company. I mean, I know you use organic plants. You wildcraft, and wildcraft means you go out into the wilderness and you literally pull them from nature where they haven't been touched by chemicals and toxins. Can you just talk a little bit more about the process? Because I mean, if you look at other essential oil companies out there, I know they're not all created equal, and I know not all of them are necessarily using organic plants. Uh, in my mind, there's a risk of when you're taking a very concentrated part of a plant, and if that plant is toxic, aren't you really just concentrating those toxins into the oil, since the oil is probably what holds a lot of those potential toxins?
I mean, that is a risk, but I really try to shy away from fear-based marketing. For anyone that's ever had an herb garden, how hard is it to grow lavender or peppermint or basil? You don't need a lot of pesticides to grow these plants. So I don't want people to, worry too much. Organic is preferable, but, it's kind of like the dirty dozen, some fruits, if you can't get it organic, it's still okay. Um, I think, I really do try to source with great integrity. I actually think that the more interesting challenge is, like factory farming versus working with small farms. Like think of pasture raised eggs, where the chickens are actually out in the field eating the grass, as opposed to, poor farm chickens who maybe don't ever see daylight. I think it's just having that kind of love and care and attention throughout the process, and that's what I really see as one of our core differential advantages is we do work with small farmers. We're not a big company, we're not plowing our own fields and factory farming anything.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best use in my community for essential oils is as a natural tick repellent. We've actually got good evidence that a lot of these essential oils are great for repelling ticks, mosquitoes and other biting insects. The common chemicals that are used like DEET are incredibly toxic, and of course, if it gets absorbed through your skin, that can be very dangerous, particularly if you're applying it on a regular basis. But it's very, very safe to use essential oils, and if they get on your skin, that's okay. It's a plant, and it's not really toxic of any nature. But I've had patients, when they're going out camping, when they're going out hiking, they're going to be out where there might be exposure to ticks, they can just spray over their clothes. If they need to spray on their skin, at least we know it's safe, and actually works quite well at keeping ticks away.
No, it's fabulous. We have a purification blend, and it's interesting. I've been to Peru twice, and that's what they use down there. They give you a blend of essential oils that's actually very similar to what I sell at Vibrant Blue.
Yeah, and I don't know if this will show off because I got my green screen on, but I've actually got your parasympathetic blend right here that I use on a fairly regular basis. This is just a great blend to help sort of, your parasympathetic nervous system is the part of your nervous system that makes you calm and relaxed. And of course, like all of us, we're stressed out of our mind most of the time. So I just put a little dab on either side of my temples and sometimes a little bit under my nose. And again, I find it works great. And you know this off the top of your head, but this is a combination of clove, bud.
It's really simple, and I'll actually give the backstory. So, there are two branches of the nervous system. Think of it like two gears. Like there is danger. I have to allocate resources towards survival. So, heart rate increases, respiration increases, blood's routed to arms and legs and away from the core of digestion and detoxification. That is called the sympathetic branch of the nervous system. And then the safety gauge. you know, the danger has passed. It's okay to calm down, to feel calm, to be able to connect with other people and access my higher cognitive function and reroute blood towards digestion and detoxification. And the gear shift between these two branches of the nervous system is your vagus nerve, cranial nerve number 10. Starts at the back of the head, splits, is most accessible behind the earlobe on both sides. Both sides can be used to activate the vagus nerve. You know, the left side goes more to the heart, the right side more to the gut, but either works. And if you just take a little drop of this oil and put it behind the earlobe, between your ear and your, right behind the ear, there's kind of a divot. And that is kind of a good application point, because that literally, it stimulates the vagus nerve and helps you gear shift into the parasympathetic branch of the nervous system. And that was based on some interesting research. There is a New York neuroscientist named Kevin Tracy who was surgically implanting a pacemaker-like device on that very spot and using it to activate the vagus nerve. And he got such amazing results. The FDA actually approved this invasive procedure. It's 2 surgeries, one implanting the stimulatory device behind the earlobe, and then a battery that goes down below and kind of a thread between the two. And the battery can run out, so you have to have the surgery again. But this was approved for epilepsy, migraines, and depression. And when I saw that, I realized, oh, stimulatory. You know, most people think like, oh, I want to turn on calm, I'm going to use a calming oil. But it's the opposite. You know, you don't sedate, you stimulate. So clove is one of the more stimulatory oils. And by that, it means like if you were to apply it where your skin is kind of thin, like on your arm, it might turn a little red, it might feel a little warm. If that ever happens, what you're going to do is take any cooking oil in your kitchen and just dilute it. You're not going to use water, because water and oil don't mix, and that will spread it more and make it worse. But what I found was clove was super stimulatory and kind of worked like an acupuncture needle, but there's a bit of chemistry involved in essential oil blends. Clove has medium-sized molecules, so I combined it with citrus oils that have very small molecules, which is one of the reasons they're perceived to be so uplifting, because the molecules are so small. When you smell them, they get into your brain very quickly and kind of boost your mood. So lime was the best mixture. And then I combine it with fractionated coconut oil, which also, you know, different carrier oils, which is what you use to dilute it, have different consistencies. So fractionated coconut oil gets through the skin the most quickly. You know, other ones like jojoba are more of kind of a slow, gentle release. You know, castor oil, you can put it on at night and you wake up and you still have it on. If you put fractionated coconut oil on your liver, it's usually not there and sticky by morning. So that was kind of the backstory on the blend.
Yeah, I actually am very grateful to clove oil. I had my wisdom teeth extracted when I was in my mid-20s, and I got a dry socket. And I had a Greek orthodontist or an oral surgeon, and he actually packed the dry socket with some gauze dipped in clove oil, and it got rid of the pain immediately. It's an incredibly effective anesthetic as well. And
Yes.
I remember for a week, you know, everything I smelled and ate tasted like clove oil, but it's one of those really cool oils again that again has that stimulant effect, but again also very good anesthetic.
Oh, it's amazing. And it's this constituent eugenol, which is in a lot of oils, but clove is the highest. And eugenol is amazing for antifungal, antibacterial. I mean, it's good for everything.
Yeah. And the other oil that I keep on my desk here, and say, I don't know if it'll show up on the camera, but this is your circulation blend.
I love that one too.
Yeah, can you talk about some of the constituents in this?
Well, my favorite one is cypress, and it's interesting. Some of the naturopathic doctors, you know, when people were having respiratory issues, were kind of stumbling upon cypress as being really great for helping with breathing. And my favorite application point is the clavicles. If you just kind of feel a little bit above the collarbone. Oh, it's interesting. I was, they'll either feel like nothing or they might feel tender. The other day, this felt tender, and I was massaging it, and it's fine now. But I like to put a little drop of the circulation blend right there, because it helps with respiration. I also love to put it on the back of the neck and the sides of the neck, because it increases blood flow. To me, it's better than coffee for helping me like hyper focus. Like, you know, there are a couple of times my daughter can now drive herself, but when I'd have to drive her to like away games or things, and I'd be driving at night, I get up really early. So by like 11 at night, I'm pretty cooked. So I would always use that to make sure like I'm not falling asleep. I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to focus. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that's what I've been using it for, is really more for like focus, concentration. If I feel like I'm getting a little drowsy late in the afternoon, I'll put a little dab on, and I do. I feel like it just kind of opens my brain up. Uh, in my mind, anyway, it's opening up blood flow to the brain, more oxygen, more nutrients, and what I love about it too is it works quickly. I think a lot of things,
Immediately.
like if you take, an oral supplement, it could be 10, 15 minutes, could be an hour before it really gets, through the gut, through the liver, gets absorbed. But the beauty of these topical application of essential oils is they get absorbed within a very short period of time, seconds to minutes. So they get in the bloodstream quickly, and therefore they exert that action in a really short period of time.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because most people think of, the three ways to kind of work with oils: inhalation, ingestion, which you pointed out. I always tell people that's not a do-it-yourself thing. Like, work with a practitioner. It can be super powerful, and a lot of practitioners do use it with Lyme and other gut-related issues, but don't try it at home, especially because, if you're killing everything, you want to make sure that the toxins are leaving the body and not recirculating. But the third way, topical application, most people assume that it has to go through the skin into the capillaries, carry to the heart, and then go system wide. And that's not wrong, but you can also use oils on specific acupuncture points, and then it almost works like an acupuncture needle to have a systemic effect.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, I never really thought about using it that way, but it makes a lot of sense because really, yeah, what are you doing? You're just stimulating the points of whether you do it with a needle, acupressure, or an essential oil. And as essential oil, I guess you get the benefit of both, right? You get the
Yeah, it's
stimulation of
like
the point and
layering.
the chemical effect of the essential oil itself.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, something new on the horizon with Vibrant Blue. Do you have any new blends coming out?
We do. The one other one that I want to mention for this audience was histamine, because I travel with it all the time. I'm slightly sensitive to mold. I don't live in a moldy place, but I find that a lot of hotels I go to are moldy. And
Right.
so when I notice that, smelling it or topically applying it behind the ears, back of the neck, or bottom of the feet, I tend not to react, even if I'm in a moldy space. Or if I eat something, I avoid gluten, but sometimes I'm glutened by accident. So I'll put a little bit on my gut, and that seems to help. And in terms of the new blends, we are coming out with a new blend for the fascia. What I've noticed, I'm constantly trying to like optimize, and I think I got it right, but I'm like, it's not 100%. What am I missing? And what, people may or may not know, that the fascia is basically what gives our body structure. It's the wrapping of every organ, every tissue, including the vagus nerve. And often when we have something stressful happen, what do we do when we have stress? We kind of hunch. It's like the turtle back, we're in a protective stance. We compress our heart so that we kind of keep ourselves safe. And even though the danger can pass, the fascia kind of holds onto that memory and continues to clench, after the danger is over. And so we want to help unravel that. And body workers are great at that. It's usually kind of compression and heat and time. And so I've created this blend that you can use. It's great for especially the jaw. I think the neck is one of the big bottlenecks in the body. And, if there's any congestion or stagnation in the neck, then the toxins from the brain don't have an easier way to drain. And so I love to put it on the neck. There are a bunch of acupuncture points you can put it on. I've been working with some body workers who have been giving me really great feedback that it just helps to kind of open things up so that then the lymph can flow and the vagus nerve can signal. It's one of those obstacles that can get in the way. And even if it's not problematic and you're not kind of turtle back clenching, it really just helps make everything flow more smoothly.
Oh, that's cool. And I can imagine that if you had someone like a massage therapist you're working with, if they would be willing to add, maybe a drop or two of that oil into whatever other oil they're using for the massage, I can imagine that would be incredibly powerful.
Well, that's what they do. And the other thing that we don't realize is, the issues are in the tissues, like emotions that we don't process, we kind of tend to carry with us and hold on to. And that's where we feel pain or where, something gets out of alignment. Like every time they go and they get corrected, and the minute they walk out of the office, they're kind of back to what they were. And so I've really been playing with the fascia blend, both on a physical level, but also on an emotional level, because I used to joke, when I don't know what to do, I do nothing. And there were a few too many things that were happening in my life where I'm like, why am I stuck here? Like, why can I not seem to get this done? And so I started really trying to move into the fascia and kind of releasing all the stuck points. And, I'm slowly chipping away at the iceberg.
Yeah, well, the emotional piece is, I think, is that it's such a huge part for a lot of people, certainly with chronic illness. And I think anything we can do to help open that up, I mean, talk therapy can be helpful, that type of work. But I agree that, the tissue holds on to so much of this memory. And I mean, I can remember, I used to do more cranial sacral therapy in my practice. And when you've got hands-on body work, it's amazing how many people would just start bursting into tears when you were just very gently, manipulating the tissue. But again, I think it's just allowing for that release to happen. And then, that emotional stuff comes up. So that can be incredibly powerful work. If you've been dealing with any kind of chronic illness, this can be a way to help, move you forward.
Well, and it also brings awareness. Like, I struggled to sit cross-legged, and I was in yoga, and I'm like, I wonder if this will help. And it did help, but then it kind of, all of a sudden I was aware of what the underlying emotional issue was. And once I was, when you're aware of something, then it's easier to process it, because
Right.
it's, you're thinking about it and you're focusing on it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that's great information. And if you guys have never tried essential oils, I definitely recommend to check out vibrantblueoils.com. Jodi's got, I mean, I don't know how many different essential oil blends you have. You have a lot. And
Yeah.
there's something for everybody. And you've got great descriptions on all the different blends. And I know you've got great customer support. So definitely recommend to check it out. And we'll drop the link to the website and the show notes. So Jodi, I really appreciate you taking the time to share your information about essential oils and educating people on how powerful they can be in helping people get better. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.